Everybody want to take their seats, please? Get ready to start. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. Grab them seats and we'll get ready to start. Real quick, I'll give a couple of announcements which are always important to keep in touch with our group. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown has a Facebook page. Believe it or not, it's called the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Keeps you connected not only to this group and all the other functions that are going on in and around the area. It's a good way to keep connected. There's actually some speakers listed on there, a lot of information. If you have any AA information that you'd like to share with others, we always like to keep everybody informed. It's a very informative way to keep connected. Our back table back there has a bunch of flyers. We welcome you guys. If you have any flyers from any other AA events or functions, to please put them there. We like to keep everybody up to date on what's going on as best we can. Connect all those dots for everybody. We also have a a website, and that's easy to find. Keeps track of all our speakers and what we do here each week. Just Google Saturday night 1-hour speaker meeting, Doylestown PA, and it'll come up on there, and you'll be able to keep connected with that there. That's probably the best way. Just be mindful that the food and the fellowship actually starts at 8 p.m. So if you'd like to get here and eat some of that great food, usually we have a lot of great food usually. There is one thing I wanted to announce. One of our sandwich bakers or the ham slider maker, Brett, had open heart surgery, so he's been gone for the last couple weeks. And I sent him a text. I said, "You'll do anything to get out of a commitment." so keep him in your prayers, and when he gets back, we'll get back to our ham sliders, which are always sorely missed here. Tyra's going to come up here and chair this meeting. All right, we all settled in. Okay, Tyra.
Hi, I'm Tara. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Doylestown Conscious Contact Speaker Group, to the Women's Month of September. We're very glad you're here. Even if you're not a woman, if you're an alcoholic, that's just fine. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have asked Brian, I think, to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And I think Daryl's going to come up here and do the preamble.
My name is Daryl. I'm an alcoholic. This is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism.
The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Let's see here. Oh, that's why. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Brian. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church at 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 to 7:30 p.m. right here. And the purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery, and if you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town who would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Hi. Hey, Greg. Hey, Jacob. In the back? Hey, Greg. Welcome. Hi, Anthony. Welcome. Anybody else who wouldn't like to introduce themselves, but they will anyway? Nobody? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. So please look around the room. These are your available sponsors. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge, and anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD Donations. And if you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or Ron, who's up here in the front, before that ship has sailed. See me or Ron after the meeting. All right? They are available free of charge. The seventh tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like someone else to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses, and this group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And I'd like to welcome, for Women's Month, Joanna M, who's our speaker tonight. She's recently come back to the East Coast from LA. She's a member of the Central Group in Manhattan. She's a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Please help me welcome Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Ron, for asking me to speak. It's always an honor and a privilege to show up for my sobriety. I got sober in Los Angeles on June 3rd, 2006. I moved home to New York City last year, so I've been back in New York for a year. I think that the best meetings in the world are in the city in which you get sober, so I miss LA meetings horribly. So I'm going to start with what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I used to introduce myself as, hi, I'm Joanna. I'm an alcoholic, bulimic, anorexic, cokehead with an addiction to Louis Vuitton. And guys. So I have a lot of addictions. We have a saying in Los Angeles that if you're 5 years sober and you're not in at least 3 of these things, you're still in denial. I have worked 5 12-step programs at certain time. At one point, I was working all 5 simultaneously. I was out of work at the time, so I could do that. I believe in the 12 steps and in the spiritual teachings of the Big Book, and they work for me because nothing else did. I grew up in an era where you were teased on bourbon, and if you were misbehaving, a little shot of something actually was a good way to get you to calm down. So I really couldn't tell you when my first drink was. I was clearly when I was teething, though. I always had weird behaviors around food. At one point when I was I think 4 years old, I went for 6 months and the only thing I would eat was cream spinach. That was it. I haven't obviously had, from my introduction, an eating disorder. And that was very obvious to me. All right? When you're eating compulsively and you're making yourself throw up or you're abusing diuretics, that's a really clear-cut problem. Alcoholism, on the other hand, completely escaped me. I really, truly did not understand that I was alcoholic. It took a very long time for me to get it. When I do remember my first intentional drink, which was when I was 12 years old. My mom and dad went out. I had a friend over. I was living in New York City, and we were smoking our Marlboro Reds out the window. And my parents didn't have a liquor cabinet. They had a liquor closet. So it was a whole closet, and we took a 2-finger shot of every single alcohol in that closet. And she blacked out. She threw up. My mother had to stick her in a shower, rip her clothes off of her and stick her in a shower. I was completely aware of everything that was happening. I was laughing and giggling a lot. I had a pretty nasty hangover the next day, but my parents didn't realize I was drunk. It wasn't until my friends started to throw up that they realized there was a problem. That pretty much describes my drinking. It really, you couldn't tell when I was drunk. And that worked in my favor, because when I got sober, a lot of people, including my ex-husband, said to me, "Wow, I'm really sorry. I had no idea." But it also worked against me, because it allowed me to drink for a very long time without anyone recognizing, including myself, that there was a problem. When I was 13 years old, pot came into the picture. At 15, cocaine. At 16, some psychedelic drugs. By the time I was 17, I could recognize that coke was an issue. And I decided that for college I was going to go to LA. Now, the reason I wanted to go to LA from New York City was because I had blonde hair and I'm living in New York and I don't look like anybody and I don't fit in here and I don't like myself and I don't like my life. And the truth is, I really, in the back of my mind, thought I need to get as far away from this cocaine dealer as humanly possible, and the entire Eastern Seaboard is not far enough. So I went out to LA, I threw away his phone number, and back then, if you threw away someone's phone number and didn't dial it for about a month or so, you forgot it and it was gone. And that's what happened, and I got off that airplane in Los Angeles. I stopped smoking cigarettes. From the minute I got on the plane, I stopped, because I thought it would not be cool. These people in LA are very healthy, so it's not okay to smoke cigarettes in Los Angeles. And I also thought the drug thing would not be a good idea. I thought that will not be socially acceptable. So I put both of those things down the minute I stepped on board American Airlines at JFK. And I did not pick either of those things back up. And that's a blessing, and it's shocking. But I did, in pulling my geographic, show up in LA with a pretty nasty eating disorder and alcoholism. And it took the very large university that I was at all of 6 weeks to figure out that they had an alcoholic on their hands. As I was driving my car, remember I grew up in New York City, so it's not like I'm used to driving a car. I had a flat tire, so I had this little donut on the front end of my car. I was drunk, And I came around on campus, and I took a corner with a donut on the car going like 40 miles an hour. And what happened? The tire flew off the car, like, of course. So the tire goes bouncing away like this, and I go slamming into a concrete wall. I back the car up, pull it onto campus, because I was coming from off of campus, right? So I'm now on campus property. This is a very important part of the story. I am now on campus property. I get out of the car, and I am laughing hysterically because I don't know what else to do. I've just ruined my car. And the campus police show up first. And they tell me to sit down and to not say anything. They said, sit here and don't say a word. And the LAPD are there like that. And the LAPD came up, and the two campus cops stand there, and they look at the LAPD go, what do we got here? And they said to them, it's on our turf. We've got this one. And they saved my butt. I had no idea I would have gone to jail. That would have been a DUI. They sent me, this is a school that was a party school. It's really hard to get on social probation. I got put on social probation at a party school as a freshman, like first semester. So I'm on social probation, and I have to go to this guy, and he gives me the 20 questions. Has anyone in here ever taken the 20 questions? Do we know what this is? All right, it's these 20 questions, and I won't give away the results, but don't answer yes to any of them, because if you do, you're in trouble. So I answered yes to 6. And he looked at me and he just said, you need to go to an AA meeting. And he gave me a list. And I went to an AA meeting in downtown LA. I had to take the bus because I don't have a car at this point. I took the bus to this meeting, and I walked into a conference room in a high-rise. And there were a bunch of men sitting around the table in suits, and they're probably the age I am now. And I did not relate to a thing. I didn't hear a word. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know why I was there. I didn't know what they were talking about. And that was the last time I walked into an AA meeting until 2006. And that was in 1986. I spent the rest of college drinking and doing my deal. You know, I did a lot of embarrassing things. Right, you know, when I got drunk, I had a really hard time keeping my shirt on. And when I got older, that became a little bit of a liability, because when I got drunk, your husband started to look really good. So, you know, but I never got in trouble. Like, there's no DUI, never got fired, never missed a day of work. I had a lot of rules around drinking. So you ever read the part of the big book where it talks about all the things we did? Right, we go to sanitariums. We swear on and off liquor. We say we're not going to drink any more hard liquor. That we're, you know, swear on a Bible. You know, we try all these different things. That was me. Right, I used to drink Stoli Straight, no rocks. That just diluted it. So Stoli Straight was my thing, and Top Shelf Long Island. And then at a certain point I decided, you know what it is? The problem is it's the eating disorder. I need to be putting something in my mouth, and I just get nervous. So I'll just switch to beer and wine, because there's less alcohol in beer and wine, and that way I can drink that much without, you know, getting schnockered. So I switched to beer and wine for 20 years prior to stopping drinking. So I did those kinds of things. I had a lot of, like I said, I had a lot of rules around alcohol. I had to be in the office the next day. It did not matter how much I had drank. I had to be in the office the next day. I had to go to the gym. Drinking at work was a big no-no. As long as it was like 5 o'clock, that was okay. If I was at a business lunch, that was okay. And if I was at brunch, obviously that was fine, because you have to have a mimosa at brunch, of course. So, you know, there was all kinds of justifications going on. But like I said, nothing bad was happening. I got married, I got divorced. We didn't blame it on the alcohol. It was definitely me. I was the common denominator, and I was the problem in the marriage, but we didn't blame it on the alcohol. And what happened was, you know, it really comes down to the way I viewed the world, which I didn't learn until I got into AA. I hated myself. I hated my life. And I thought that whatever you had going on in your life was better than what I had going on. Whoever you were with, whatever job you had, whatever house you had, whatever kids you had, the grass was always greener somewhere else. And my life was always going to be okay when I got there. When I get married, I'll be fine. When I get the job, I'll be fine. When I get the car, when I get the house, when I get, the list just kept growing, and I actually had a lot of success at a very young age, and I started to get the stuff, and it wasn't fine. There was not enough stuff in the world to make me feel okay about me. I just couldn't get to a place where I was comfortable in my skin and where I liked myself. I had an internal dialogue, then that internal voice was kind of childish, and it only said one thing to me. It was three very simple words. I hate you. I hate you, 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 I hate you. And I remember one time I had told my husband about this voice, and that it used to say that to me. And I remember one time we were sitting in the car, and I was sort of staring off into space, and it was going really fast. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And it came with a level of anxiety and stress, and my body would tense up. And he looked over at me and he goes, "Joey, stop it!" And I was like, "How did you know?" And he goes, "How could I not?" And he just couldn't comprehend that I said that to myself. And I couldn't comprehend it. And I would tell people, I told a therapist, I told one of my best friends. Nobody understood it. Nobody else in my life had that voice. And I thought, I'm like a total freak. How am I going to get rid of this voice? Anyway, I'll tell you, in terms of the voice, what got rid of it was AA. It was the 12 steps in the God of my understanding. And that didn't come for many, many years after, until I got into sobriety. So, essentially what happened was I had a really good life. It looked really good on the outside, but it did not feel good on the inside. I mean, there was nothing about it that felt good. I had the stuff, but it didn't matter. And I got divorced, and everything was my career. My whole life was my career. I married for my career. I divorced for my career. Everything was about my job. And I got a call one morning. I was driving home from the gym. It was my boss. He was in LA, and he said, "Joanna, we're shutting down your division." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "And we're announcing it in about 30 minutes at a press conference in Manhattan." And I was like, very impressed that they had pulled this off, because it's hard to keep a secret in my business, but devastated at the same time. And what preceded was 6 months of the most intense drinking I'd ever done. Because it was like I was already like a tightrope walker who had fallen and was hanging on to the tightrope and looked down, and there was no net. Like someone had taken the net away. And my life became very small. And it was, I lived on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, in this kind of area where there's a lot of high-rises. And I lived in one of the high-rises, because you can take the girl out of New York, but you cannot take New York out of the girl. And so there were restaurants. There were 4 restaurants on each of the corners by my apartment. And I would just go to those 4 restaurants, and I'd bring work with me, and I'd eat out every night. And I got to know the bartenders, and they would just pour me glasses of wine. I'd sit at the bar and I'd eat these nice dinners, and I'd be drinking a bottle and a half or more of wine every night. And my life just got super tiny. And remember those rules I told you? I broke one of them. I was in New York. I was on a business trip. I had to go for 2 weeks to New York City, because in shutting down our division, they were also opening a whole new brand, shiny new, toy for the company to play with. And I was charged with shutting down my division and helping start the new, helping launch the new one. And so I went to New York. But by the way, I was not getting a job at the new one. I was just helping launch it. So I went to New York for 2 weeks, and I was writing this really big speech. And I was in the office, in our New York office, and I could not concentrate. I couldn't think. And there was nothing going on up here, nothing. And I said to everyone, I got to go to the hotel. It's just too noisy here. I'm going to go back to the hotel. And I went to the hotel, and it was 5 o'clock at night, and I ordered a bottle of wine. I had an expense account. I ordered dinner, and I put the dinner on the room, and I put the bottle of wine on my personal credit card. And I have no idea why I did that. And I drank that bottle of wine in 20 minutes. And then I spent the next 4 to 6 hours writing, and I went to bed at around 1 a.m. And because I had this rule, I got up at 5 a.m. and I got to the gym because that was the rule. But I had broken the first rule, and I said, you know what? That wasn't good. I drank while working. Something's wrong. I'm never doing that again. Next night, 5 p.m. in the office. Guys, I can't think. I got to go back to the hotel. Get to the hotel, order the dinner, put it on the room, order the bottle of wine, put it on the personal credit card. Gone in 20 minutes. And I was like, something's really wrong. Called my therapist because I was seeing a therapist at the time. She had apparently been telling me for 10 years I should go to AA. Never heard her say that. Swear to God, she had never said it. Still not willing to admit I was an alcoholic, and I said, could you find me someplace where I can go and like relax? I'm stressed. I'm really stressed about this job switch thing that's happening here, and God love her. She found me a place, I swear to this is what it said and she sent me the website. Are you a high-level executive experiencing a tremendous amount of stress? Are you using alcohol to help with that stress? Maybe eating a little too much. Do you find yourself coming home and taking a Valium when you don't need it? Come, we can help you. So I'm like, oh, good, executive stress retreat. I'll go. So I go down this really nice place in Newport Beach with this beautiful view, and there's sailboats going by and everything, and I get greeted at the door by a guy in blue gloves. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, well, I'm going to take you to your room. I'm like, why are you wearing gloves? He goes, because I have to go through your bags. And I was like, huh? So he goes through my bag, and he takes my hairspray. Why are you taking my hairspray? Because it's got alcohol in it, you might drink it. I'm like, I'm not going to drink my hairspray. So I'm like, whatever. I still don't realize I'm in rehab. So then, my mother likes to say denial is not just a river in Egypt. So anyway, then I go to work out, and they come running in. I'm like on the treadmill. They come running in. They're like, whoa, stop. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you can't work out for 48 hours. I'm like, the whole reason I'm at the stress retreat is to lose weight and then feel better. And they're like, but you might have, they thought I was going to get the DTs, right? They had no idea how the level of my drinking. So they wouldn't let me work out, and I called my therapist and I'm like, geez, fix this. Anyway, at that point I realized I was in a rehab. And those people were really smart with me. They really were, because I really didn't think I had a drinking problem. And on my final day there, they said to me, you might not. You really might not have a drinking problem, but you do have some pretty bad habits around alcohol, and you really shouldn't drink for 6 months to a year. And by the way, because you have those bad habits, that could be a little bit challenging, so you might want to go to AA. Don't join the club. You don't need to join it. Just audit the class. And I'm like, what does that mean? What do I do? And they said, show up late, leave early, and don't talk to anyone. And I said, I can do that. Because I truly, truly didn't believe I was meant to be there. And so I did that for 2 weeks. I went to meetings. I showed up late. I left early. I didn't really talk to anybody. Didn't identify as new. So what do you think happened, right? I'm now 45 days dry as a bone. I don't have alcohol. I don't have a job. It is not good. And so I just lost my train of thought. So it's Saturday night, I go to a meeting, and I'm like, oh, I'm such a loser. I'm at an AA meeting on a Saturday night. How low can life get? Anyway, so I go to the meeting, and it doesn't do the trick. It really doesn't do the trick. And the rehab had told me, if you get jonesing for a drink, make the liquor store 20 minutes away. Because you can survive you can outlast a craving if you wait 20 minutes. The craving will go away if you wait 20 minutes. So I'm driving home, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going out of my mind. And all of a sudden my car makes a left turn. I swear to you, I did not make that left turn. The car made a left turn. The car makes a left turn, and the next thing you know, I'm heading to the Pacific Palisades, which is 20 plus minutes away from wherever I was at that moment, and I'm walking into another AA meeting. Now I'm really a loser because I'm at 2 AA meetings on a Saturday night, back to back. And I walk in, I'm late, I sit in the back of the room, it's my total MO. The woman at the front of the room shares, and she told my story. She grew up in New York City. She went to one of the private prep schools, one of the sister schools to mine. She was a roller skating hostess at the saloon restaurant, which I was too. You know, like she went to Studio 54 when she was 12. Hello. You know, like the whole thing. Like she told my whole story. And tears just streaming down my eyes. And the guy next to me goes, we're about to ask, he goes, you should put your hand up, you're a newcomer. And I was like, how do you know I'm new? I was so offended. So anyway, I put my hand up. I did try to share, but I was crying too much, so really not much came up. And she basically said, come up afterward. And I went up afterward, and she told me about a women's meeting on Thursday mornings. And she said, please come to this women's meeting. I go to it. It's in the Palisades, and it's from 9:30 to 11. I was still working at that point, but I really didn't care. I was desperate, right? I mean, we become as desperate as the dying can be. And somebody threw out the life preserver that they talk about in the 12 and 12, and I grabbed it, thank God. And that woman became my sponsor, and she didn't become my sponsor because I asked her. She became my sponsor because at a certain point I think she got tired of looking at me being so like harried and stressed out, and she said, why don't you let me sponsor you? And I said, you don't understand, I'm going to be allowed to drink in 6 months to a year, and I don't want to waste your time. She said, no problem, why don't we just start the steps anyway? And I said, okay. So I started calling her once every 10 days. I went to a meeting once every 2 weeks. You can hear how bad this is going. While I was at it as a newcomer, I found my higher power. His name was Joe. Anyhow, so and I decided that because I was doing this AA thing, and it obviously seemed to be something that I needed to do, that I was going to go to meetings that were in zip codes that were like known for wealthy men. By the way, that attitude landed me in SLAA 3 years after that. So anyway, so I'm doing it like this for some time. It's not working. At 6 months, I'm like, I said to my sponsor, I'm coming up on 6 months. I'm going to be allowed to drink. And she said, how do you feel about that? And I said, I don't want to drink. I said, I want to drink badly, but I don't want one. I want a whole bottle. Okay, I still don't think I'm an alcoholic, by the way. I've been putting my hand up saying, hi, I'm Joanna, I'm an alcoholic, but I only did it so you'd like me. I'm a people pleaser. So anyway, she said, well, why don't you go out and try some controlled drinking? Now, of course, I had not read the big book at this point, so I had no idea that she's quoting literature. And I was like, what? You want me to go try? So you're in AA, you're telling me to go drink? You know, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to have one. I'm going to have 10. And she said, oh, that's quite a dilemma, isn't it? Why don't you do 90 and 90? And I was like, okay, sure. And I started to do 90 meetings in 90 days. And up until that point, you can hear how badly I was doing AA, but you know, I have to say this. People can be, I've heard, I did obviously jump with both feet into AA because what happened was, instead of listening for the differences, I started to listen for the similarities. And I started to hear my story. And I was sitting in a meeting at 7:30 in the morning before the office, and I heard a woman share about shoplifting as a 10-year-old, and for no good reason, because it's not like her family had money, and she was shoplifting. And I was like, I used to shoplift all the time. And I didn't know why I did it. Like, there was no need for me to shoplift, but I used to shoplift as a 10-year-old. And, you know, at that point, I'd been in AA for about 6 months. I'm sure I've heard this somewhere before, but it's not the drinking, it's the thinking. And it just dawned on me in that moment. I have alcoholic thinking. I think like these people, and I might think that I have a high bottom, and I might think that I didn't drink like them, but the truth is I think like them, and I've always thought like you. Always. And in that moment, I put my hand up to share, and I said, I'm Joanna, and I'm an alcoholic, and I believed it. And it was powerful, and it changed my life. And I did that 90 and 90, and I started to do the steps. And at 11 months sober, that whole transition that was happening with my company that I mentioned earlier, I got downsized. I got let go for good, which was really scary. And at 11 months sober, my higher power named Joe dumped me. And those two things happened within about a 2-week period. And I got home from from a business trip, and it was my last day at work, and on Monday, it was the first Monday I hadn't gone to an office in decades. And I worked in high school, I worked in college, like I had been going to work for a very long time at that point, and I was sitting around my apartment, I didn't know what to do, and my ex-husband called me, and he said, "Hi, I just wanted to give you this news myself, I'm getting remarried." I didn't want to drink. I didn't even want to use. I wanted to die. I really did. It was too much. It was just in that moment, God had taken everything from me. And I was just like, this is not fair, and I hate life. But at that point, I had smart feet, right? Because I'd now been doing it. I was now 11 months sober, and I had really the program. I hadn't been working the program had been working me. And I went to a women's meeting, and I would drive into that meeting, and I had this cute little sports car that I did eventually have to give up because after I got downsized right before the recession. I was out of work for 6 years. But I was driving that cute little sports car, and I was behind a Mack truck, and I wanted to slam that car under that truck because it would have fit really nicely right under there. I really wanted to do that, and I didn't, and I shared it in a women's meeting, and those women surrounded me afterwards, and they told me what to do the next day. And I got up the next morning, and I couldn't get out of bed, and I called my sponsor, and she said, "Go brush your teeth and call me back." And I called her back. She goes, "Go put your yoga clothes on and call me back." And I called her back, and she said, "You're going to Maha Yoga. There's a class at 11 a.m. Steve Ross, tell him I sent you. Call me back." And at 12:30, when that class ended, I called her back, and she said, "How do you feel?" And I go, "A lot better." And she goes, "Good, go to a meeting." And that's what I did. And I started to go, on average, 14 meetings a week, right? So that's at least 2 a day, and a lot of times I hit more. The thing I love about LA is that you can go to 5 AA meetings in one day. You can hit the 6:30 a.m., which is the earliest one, and you can hit the Midnight Madness. And I've done that. There are a couple times I did that because when this brain gets going, when this mind gets going, and I can't get it untwisted, I need a meeting. I need to be reminded. I need someone to talk to me about the steps. So, anyway, I sort of skipped over the eating disorder thing. I'd actually, just to go back to that for a minute, because it is a little bit of an important part of the story. The eating disorder was really obvious, and I actually ended up in OA in 1996. Okay, so 10 years before I got sober, I went to OA and I got abstinent from bulimia and anorexia, and I still have that abstinence today, so I'm 22 years abstinent in OA. But what happened in OA was that I had been sharing my story, and someone came up to me and they said, "A lot of your stories have to do with alcohol. Have you ever looked at your drinking?" And like any good alcoholic, I didn't go to an OA meeting again for about 7 years. When I got sober, I started to eat a lot. And actually, right before the meeting, we were talking about it. The big book talks about how they and I think it's in To the Wives. It talks about how you should let your husband have candy next to the bed, like let him eat whatever he wants. Sugar's good for him. I really started to eat a lot, and I started to get worried about my eating disorder, and I got myself back into OA. And I was in AA, and then I started to go to Al-Anon because I grew up in an alcoholic household, and I started to get educated about that situation. So I now got 3 12-step programs, and I'm less than 5 years sober, so I was really proud of myself because I was living up to the LA mantra of if you're 5 years sober and not in at least 3 of these things, you're not sober. They don't say it that way. Anyway, so I'm doing the deal, but I don't have a God of my understanding. Because I came into this program with a father who was an atheist, a mother who studied religion in college but was agnostic, a Catholic family that didn't go to church. I didn't know. I didn't know what God was. I thought it was something really nice for you, and I thought you were a good enough person to have a God, but I was not good enough or lucky enough to have a higher power or a God that was actually looking out for me. What happened was it was about 2 years sober, and it really started to take effect. Done the steps, but not feeling comfortable unless I'm in a meeting. Fortunately, I was out of work, so I could be in a meeting a lot, but my sponsor gave me some direction. And she said, whenever anyone shares and you want what they have, I want you to walk up to them after the meeting and ask them, who's your God and where'd you get it? And then whatever they tell you, go do it. So I started to do that. And it took me on a lot of adventures outside the rooms because As Bill Sees It, I think it's on page 95, Bill W. was writing for the Grapevine, and one of the Grapevine entries, he says, AA is spiritual kindergarten. All we're doing here is teaching each other how not to drink. We have to have a spiritual life, and we have to go outside the rooms for that. We are not the arbiter of anyone's spiritual belief system. And so what happened was I'd go up to these people and I'd ask them, who's your God and where'd you get it? Because I noticed that the big book was really good at saying I had to get a God, but it wasn't telling me what God to get. And that all these people in LA were sharing about this great God and higher power of their understanding, but they weren't sharing any details about it. So I didn't know what they were talking about. Like, I didn't get it. I traveled to Thailand to go on a 10-day silent meditation. I traveled to France to go meet with some Buddhist teacher. There was a spiritual center in LA that I went to for a long time. I listened to CDs. I read books. I've read every spiritual tradition that you put in front of me. I am a spiritual mutt. There is I am a non-discriminating spiritual person. Can you tell me what to believe in God? And I started to get a God of my understanding. And in the appendix 2, which is the spiritual experience, it says, some of us have a white light moment. Bill W. actually had a white light moment. The rest of us have educational variety spiritual experiences. I am an educational variety spiritual experience, right? Mine is about knowledge, right? So every so often I'll be reading something and my brain will, I can literally feel my brain just kind of shift ever so slightly to that awakening moment, right? That it kind of just, and I have that awakening. So I started to really get on a pink cloud in a big way, and I was the obnoxious pink cloud girl. I was sitting there in meetings. If she had the right kind of God, she wouldn't be upset right now. Thankfully it was only in my head, but it was that self-righteous spirituality where I'm like, oh, if she had my God, she wouldn't have any problems. I really, because my sponsor said, God's your boyfriend. Have God take, have God take a walk on the beach with you, have God buy you flowers, have God take you out to dinner. And I really took that concept and ran with it, and it worked for me for a really long time until it stopped working. And what happened was life started to happen, and my life got really big. While I was out of work, I went back to school and I got a PhD in psychology. And in the process of getting that PhD in psychology, I started to run out of money. I landed myself in the money program. I got some really great tools from those people, and as a result of the tools I was given in that program, I ended up back in my old career. And it happened very quickly. And I was right back where I left, meaning from the same place in terms of my what I was doing for a living. And that was a huge blessing, and life got really big. And I started to travel around the world and go to a lot of events, and just, everything sort of came back into place. And I was still meditating every morning and praying every morning, and I had very specific ideas about things I wanted, and I got into this idea that I could manifest them. I really thought that positive thinking thing was working for me. I really, really did. And then 2010 happened, and in 2010, 12 people I know died within 12 months. 6 of those people died within 9 weeks of each other. The first one to die was one of my best friends, and she died in an accident, so it was very sudden, and it was very shocking, and she left 2 kids and a husband, and it was a group of people I'd known since I was in college. They were the first people I met when I went to college at 18. And suddenly, this man, who I'd known since I was 18 years old, who I'd never thought twice about, wouldn't even think twice about. They'd been dating since they were in college. He and I fell in love after she died. And it was weird and not our doing. It just happened. And I remembered that it had happened in my own family, actually. My aunt had passed away, and my uncle was dating someone within a month. And my grandfather had done the same thing. So I apparently it's in my DNA. And we had a wonderful relationship, and truly, truly believed that Erica, would have wanted her best friend there to help take care of her family and her husband, because that's the kind of person she was. The problem is, Erica's mom didn't agree with that idea, and she made our life pretty difficult, and the kids turned on us, and so for 2.5 years we really tried to make it work, and we were going to get married, and I finally, after 2.5 years, said, I can't do this. And in one day, I cut him off, and I cut off everybody I knew from college. So it's 25 years worth of relationships gone. Because it was the only way I had to shut the door and move forward. I could not be part of that dysfunction. It was going to affect my sobriety. It was going to affect my abstinence. Like, I wasn't playing that game anymore, and it wasn't getting any better. And I walked through that whole thing abstinently, soberly, and I walked through it also in SLAA with sponsorship and sober in that program. And I can say that thanks to sobriety, that was the best relationship, the most intimate and close relationship I've ever had. It was also the most painful, and when he and I broke up, I had a crisis of faith. I had a really big crisis of faith. And I would call my sponsees, and I'd say, because, I talk about God with my sponsees all the time. Not my God, by the way. I talk to them about their God. Tell me about your God. How does God work here? How does God apply here? Anyway, and I'd call my sponsees, and I'd be like, talk to me about your God. I need your God right now because I don't have one. And they would, and I was vulnerable with my sponsees, and I was vulnerable with my sponsors, and I was vulnerable in the rooms, and eventually it turned around, and what happened was, my God had gotten really small, and I was talking to an old timer, and she said to me, tell me about your God. And so I started to talk about my belief in God, and she goes, oh, you've got an icky God. And I was like, what? I was so offended by that, but she was right. I had a mean, punishing God. Where did that come from? So, I had to really rework that concept. And then I was sitting with another old timer, and she quoted out of the big book on page, I think it's page 53, and she said to me, God is everything or God is nothing, which do you choose? And I said, well, I choose everything. And she goes, if God's everything, then God's in this situation. And God's in your alcoholism. God's in every bad thing and every trauma and every drama that you've ever had. God is in it. Find that God. Because your God's not big enough right now. And she was right. And I had to do a lot of work. And I've done a lot of spiritual work in this program. And I'm grateful for that. And I have a God of my understanding, and sometimes I have a God of my misunderstanding. But today, the thing about it is, I used to use things outside of myself to fill up this massive hole in my chest. It was like a God-sized hole, and there wasn't enough stuff in the world to make me feel okay, and I don't need that stuff anymore. And I've gone through periods in sobriety of not having stuff, and I've gone through periods in sobriety of having it. And it doesn't matter. Both are fine. There's a story in the back and the end of the big book. It's called AA. I think it's called AA Taught Him How to Deal with Sobriety. And he says in it that life used to be ups and downs, like the high highs and the low lows, and the highs were great, but the lows were really tough. And I had that too. I totally related to that. I had an issue with depression pre-sobriety and also in sobriety. I had a little depression in the beginning, and I've had panic disorder when I was in my 20s, and all kinds of stuff, and today, thanks to the 12 steps and sponsorship and sponsoring and prayer and meditation and really doing this deal the way it's prescribed, not the way I did it when I first came in, but doing it the way it's prescribed, yes, I have highs and lows. I'm a human being. I'm supposed to. We're supposed to feel. But it's more like being on a kiddie coaster. It's not like being on Colossus, which is what it used to be. And I had that, as I talked about that shift in thinking. Chuck C. wrote a book called A New Pair of Glasses, right? Because when we come in here and we do the deal and we walk and we go through the steps and we find a God of our understanding, we get a new pair of glasses, and that means I look at the world differently. So when I came in, I remember hearing, if I made a list of everything I wanted in life, They said something like, you know, we make a list of everything we want in life and it comes true. And I'm like, oh, they don't understand what's on my list. I want a private jet. Like, I want things, I want big. Like, I want mansions. You know, they have no idea what's on my list. I'm never going to get it all. And then I realized, I was reading step 2 in the 12 and 12, and it talks about how we're like children making an impossible list for Santa Claus. And I realized that it wasn't that my list was unattainable. It wasn't about the stuff. It was 2 things. It was that what was not on my list. And what wasn't on my list was I want to feel happy and content. I want peace. Okay, that's not what was on my list. My impossible list for Santa Claus was that I wanted a whole bunch of stuff to help me feel okay about myself, and what I really needed was to feel okay about myself, and then the stuff will come. And then the second thing is that I didn't want to be a human being, meaning I didn't want to feel my emotions. I drank and used other stuff so that I didn't feel my emotions. And even when I came into AA and really jumped in, I thought that I could take the steps and God and wrap it around me like some super cape and not feel and not have life happen. It's just not true. My impossible list for Santa Claus was that I wanted to be a human and I was living in a human body. And as an inhuman body, I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to say things I regret, and I'm going to feel sad, and I'm going to cry, which I used to hate doing, and I'm going to feel anxious and panicky when something happens at work and I'm worried I'm going to lose my job, and I'm going to feel sorrow when somebody dies. Like, I am meant to express and to feel. And I swear to you, I did not know that when I came in. I really didn't get that until I did the steps. I had a great my first sponsor in AA. She was so amazing, and she took me through step 1, and I don't know, I think there's a lot of different ways to do the steps, and but the way she took me through step 1, the kind of gotcha at the end of the step is that I'm not just powerless over alcohol. I am powerless over people, places, things, and situations. I am also powerless over my own thinking and my own behavior. Because if I had control of my thinking, I wouldn't think half of the stuff I think. I really wouldn't. I mean, I hate you thing. If I had control over that, I would have gotten rid of it. And if I had control over my behavior, I wouldn't do half the stuff I do. I mean, you know when you have that moment where something comes out of your mouth and you're like, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that. You know, like, if I had control, if I had power, none of the stuff that I don't like about life would be happening to me. So clearly I'm powerless. And I really grabbed onto that idea. I think for a lot of people, the idea of total powerlessness is terrifying. And for me, it was a relief. It was a tremendous relief. I had spent so many years trying to control myself and trying to control my life and my career and my husband and you and everything about you. And I couldn't. And it was as if a huge weight just left my body when I realized that I'm just powerless over everything, including my own thoughts and my own words and my own actions. Which is not to say that I don't have to do a 10-step every so often. You know, I have to make amends when I do something that's not right, but I don't have to beat myself up and believe that I'm a horrible person because I did it. You know, and in step 2, it's restored me to sanity. You know, I used to think that what I was doing was sane. I used to think I had a sane life, and I came into AA and realized, like, oh my gosh, I was totally insane. Like, the way I was living was insane, and now I have this sane life, and the way to live that sane life is by doing step 3, which was turning my will and my life over to the care of God of my understanding. And I had a friend in AA who used to say, my will is what I want, and my life is what I have. So when I'm doing step 3, I turn what I want and what I have over to a higher power. You know, and I do a step 4 and a 5 on a regular basis. I check in with my sponsor every single day. I check in with an action buddy every single day. I am constantly, you know, leaving whatever's going on in my life on a voicemail and getting a phone call back and getting input and having people share with me. Don't worry, I've done that before. Don't worry, the same thing happened to me. Here's how I dealt with it. You know, because that's what we do. You know, and I've looked at my character defects in 6 and 7. I've made my amends in 8 and 9. And then 10 and 11 and 12 are my maintenance steps. You know, and with step 10, I learned the steps. I was taken through the steps the big book way. So in step 10, it's on pages 86 through 88. You know, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? And if I'm resentful, I got to do a 4-step, right? I've got a 4-step cookie, and I'll do a really quick 4-step, and I look at that character defect, and fear's on there every time. It's always fear. And when I have fear, that means I have to do the fear inventory from page 68, and I do that, and I put my fears in black and white, and I say, Dear God, please remove these fears and show me what you would have me be instead. Not do, be. The word in the Big Book is really specific, and it's an interesting word, because I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being. And then I sit quietly, and I let that answer come to me. And then I do whatever, whatever it is, be loving, be kind, be gentle with yourself, like whatever it is. Step 11, I used to sit there, I told you for a while, I really got into positive affirmations and into the idea of manifestation, and I've moved away from that. I have sponsees that kind of thing still works for, and I'm jealous of them. But I moved away from that. But I was sitting in a meeting. I must have been like 10 years sober at the time. I was sitting I was younger than that, 5 years sober. Anyway, whatever. I'm in a meeting. I'm looking up at the wall. The 11th step is sitting there, and I'm looking at it. And you know that thing where you read something in the Big Book or in the steps, and you swear you've never seen it before, and even though it's been there the whole time. And I'm reading, and it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Where did that word only come in there? How long has that been in there? Right? Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. I have spent a lot of time praying for things. God, please give me this. God, please remove my alcoholism. Please remove this thinking. Please remove the situation. Please remove the eating disorder. Please help. Please, 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 please. And my sponsor used to say to me, you are ordering God around like a servant. Stop it. When I pray, I say, God, please tell me, please reveal to me knowledge of your will for me. Right? I'm asking a question, and I'm opening myself up to the answer. I can say, hey, God, I'm really not happy with the situation right now. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm anxious. I'm sad. I'm scared, whatever. But the ultimate question is, please tell me what your will is for me. Because then I'm not telling, I'm asking, and I'm opening myself up to the meditation part. And by the way, the step says prayer and meditation, not or meditation. And meditation is not extra credit. That took me a little while to figure out, because when I came in here, I did not want to sit quietly in this head. This head was nasty, and I did not want to sit quietly with it. That sounded like a nightmare. Now, I love doing that. And then step 12, step 12 says having, as the result of these steps, right? Not a result, as the result of doing these steps, I have a spiritual awakening. Like, that's an amazing thing, right? I have a new pair of glasses. I can see life differently, and I just realized I'm not wearing my glasses, and I can barely see that clock, but I think I'm at about an hour. I guess in the few minutes that I have left, I just want to wrap it up by saying that when I came into AA, I thought I had a good life. And I came in and I realized that what I was doing actually wasn't living. It really wasn't. I also thought I had a high bottom, by the way, and I didn't get into a lot of the details of my story. I used to go to nightclubs and stuff in New York City when I was 12 and 13 years old. I had a lot of bad behavior with men around alcohol. I used to drive drunk and in blackouts a lot. So there's a lot of, uncomfortableness in that. But I, for some reason, thought I had a high bottom because I never lost my job, and I never got a DUI, and I never got in an accident and all this kind of stuff. And I was at a meeting in LA, and I was sharing, and it's a really low-bottom meeting. It took place at the Key Club, which is a meeting on Hollywood Boulevard, and a lot of music industry people go to that meeting, and a lot of low bottoms, and the kind of low bottoms that you read about in the press, by the way. And I sat in that meeting, and I led the meeting, and I said, just, if you don't hear what you need, go to another meeting, take what you like, leave the rest. I did that whole thing because I was worried they weren't going to be able to relate to me, and I told them, I had a high bottom, and I didn't feel like I fit into AA sometimes. And the first guy to share, he's standing behind a bar, he raises his hand, and I call on him, and he goes, ma'am, I want to disabuse you of the idea that you had a high bottom. You didn't. I was like, thank you so much, because only in AA would it be a compliment to tell somebody you didn't have a high bottom. I felt like I fit in. But the truth is, I did not have a high bottom. I thought I did. It was denial. I thought I thought the life I was living was a good one, and it wasn't. It wasn't until I came in here and I worked this program, and like I said, I worked some other programs, and I did the steps, and I sponsor women, and I pray and I meditate every day, and I go to meetings, and I'm 22 years abstinent, I'm 12 years sober, I have 10 years of sobriety in SLAA. My life is unrecognizable, and I am unrecognizable. I'm a different person today. I'm a better person, and life is so much easier than it ever was. And that is all because of AA. It is 100% this program. There is no perfect way to work AA. I don't believe there is, because of the way I came in, doing it all wrong, not following any of the advice, and yet I was able to stay, and I was able to make it through, and it's a miracle, and I'm grateful for my sobriety, and thank you for my life.
Epic talk. We thank you one more time. Just a reminder, our speakers come here at their own time and their own expense, so it's kind of important. We kind of like to make a line, thank them individually for their service and for coming out and sharing their experience and sharing their hope with us. Next week we have Joyce from Maryland, not to miss another epic one. We're going to wind out this annual Women's Month. If you'd like to get involved, we have to put these chairs away. We have to leave. Here's the alcoholic test. We got to leave 7 deep and 5 across. And the rest go on that. So if you get that right, you're not dumb. Anyway, we got a nice way of closing. Thanks for coming. Don't forget the meeting after the meeting.